For Sustainable Peace and Development in Africa.
President Buhari calls for multilateral cooperation in the protection of countries threatened by environmental disasters.
Ensuring zero fatality rate zone in the Unitide road anti-police transport operators.
And on Good Morning Nigeria, today we focus on anti-corruption and sustainable development.
Now, the United Nations have declared corruption a major challenge to the MDG goals, particularly that of ending extreme poverty by 2030, which is meant to boost shared prosperity for the poorest 40% of people in developing countries of the world.
That's right, Rhoda. Now, despite progress made in the fight against corruption so far, it's still a pressing global challenge. A UNDP report, UNDP of course standing for United Nations Development Programme, estimates that funds lost through corruption are more than the estimated 10 trillion US dollars needed to eradicate poverty by the year 2030.
And that's very obvious, Kingsley, that corruption is already undermining social and economic development in every country it rears its head. And the fact is, no country, region or community is immune to corruption, which is why they say money lost to corruption is essentially development denied the most vulnerable people in the society.
Of course, that's one of the reasons why the United Nations Convention Against Corruption was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2003. And the intention, of course, is to provoke global action against corruption. And so far, the convention has been ratified by some 183 states. It obliges them to prevent and criminalize corruption in their countries, promote international cooperation, recover and return stolen assets, as well as improve technical assistance and information exchange in both the private and public sectors of the fight against corruption.
Well, 16 years since the Convention Against Corruption was ratified, the global action against corruption has, of course, met its share of challenges. The UNDP now advancing the anti-corruption agenda by providing a global framework to fight corruption in coalition with the 2030 agenda, which highlights the importance of promoting transparency, accountability and anti-corruption for sustainable development for the achievement of all the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
All right, one question that arises is, what can anti-corruption institutions do to reduce the spread of corruption in the public and private sectors? And how does corruption ultimately affect the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals? And also, how successful has the fight against cross-border corruption been, particularly in the recovery of stolen assets?
Well, Kingsley, we have anti-corruption experts and advocates in the studio to give us insight into these issues and more in the course of this program. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We're reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority from our studios, our headquarters here in Abuja. We thank you very much for joining us this beautiful Wednesday morning. I'm Rhoda Anona.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I also join my colleague to welcome you to the program, in the course of which we have our regular complimentary segments. And these include newspaper review, business, and others. So now, let's take the news highlights with our colleague Chimaobi Watanaji. Good morning, Chimaobi.
Hello, Kingsley and Rhoda. Good to see you this morning. Good morning, Nigeria. And here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari is in Egypt with other African leaders for talks at the Aswan Forum designed to set an agenda for sustainable peace and development in Africa. The forum, which begins today, is an initiative by the AU chairman and president of Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, to address the interconnections between peace and development in Africa, aimed at promoting Africa-led solutions through strengthening policies and practices.
She has identified for his administration in Nigeria, number one usually is to secure the country, then followed by to revive the economy, and then to fight corruption. But usually the first one is security, because it says that you can run a country or an institution or an organization that you have not secured.
Now, in a world increasingly plagued by activities of the agents of intolerance and religious extremism, it will take acts of deep humility and personal sacrifice, especially by leaders across board, in order to change the disposition to hate and prejudice. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said this in Abu Dhabi at the opening session of the 6th Assembly of the Forum for Promoting Peace, organized by the government of the United Arab Emirates. The burden, as the Vice President noted, rests squarely on leaders, especially religious and political leaders, and the elite in nations and communities.
That this is the responsibility that leadership places upon those of us who are religious leaders, those of us who are political leaders in our countries. The responsibility of leadership is not just words, it is not just text, it is not just laws. The responsibility of leadership is self-sacrifice, is putting our reputation on the line, is putting our words into action.
And now to other issues, as President Muhammadu Buhari is requesting the Senate to confirm 14 nominees as chairman and members of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. The legislators at Tuesday's plenary passed the Food Security Bill at second reading.
I'm pleased to forward for confirmation by the Senate that the listed names of nominees as the chairman and members of the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
And still with the National Assembly, the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, said the 9th National Assembly will not hesitate to investigate the usage of the Natural Resources Development Fund following alleged infractions in its management. Now, this was at the round-table discussion on the need for continuous implementation of policy reforms towards diversification of the Nigerian economy through the solid mineral sector held in Abuja.
I know the administration is trying to get Ajakuta back to life. That would be a fundamental feat for us in this country.
And in a related development, the House of Representatives has passed for second reading a bill for an act to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in order to make separate the office of the Attorney General of the Federation.
We need to insulate it from the vagaries and vicissitudes of political influence, so that the office can be independent.
Now to other issues, Nigeria joined the rest of the world to mark the International Day of Human Rights. This year's event focuses on youth standing up for human rights.
So for us as Nigerians, I believe it's important that we continue to support institutions like this and also continue to hold leaders accountable based on the laws of the land and also the diktats of our constitution.
We have so much to celebrate as a country. Despite the incidents of Chore and El Zakizaki and others, but as a country, we are still free to talk about them. We are still free to take measures to deal with them.
And President Muhammadu Buhari is calling for a strong multilateral cooperation for urgent intervention and action in the protection of island nations, as well as those African countries threatened by environmental disasters associated with climate change. Now, this was in a message at the Nairobi summit of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group.
Challenging
to multilateralism. A number of countries, big powerful countries, doing things unilaterally. There's not as much support for some of the multilateral initiatives, climate change and others, the UN, peacekeeping.
The Federal Road Safety Corps is having serious discussions with land transport operators in Abuja to ensure zero fatality rate during the Yuletide. And those are the news highlights now. And Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Rob after this break. Stay with us.
Francis Ololo's book launch team cordially invites you to the public presentation of books 100 Quotes and Words of Wisdom, volumes 1 to 4, and the Baby Husband, authored by Sokari Francis Ololo, under the distinguished chairmanship of General Yakubu Gowon, former head of state of Nigeria. Chief host, Chief Timi Silva, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Host, Malam Mele Kolo Kiari, Group MD, NNC. Special guest of honor, Dr. Mekanti K. Baru, Honorable Morris Idiova, CEO, License Limited. Chief launchers, Mr. Tame T.S. Jack Rich, President and founder of Belema Oil Processing Limited. Professor John Ikimolo. Fathers of the Day, His Royal Majesty Ogiame Ikenwoli, His Royal Majesty King Barrister Disrael Wogop Man. Reviewers, Professor Prince Michael S. Ikupolati, Professor Zachary A. Gundi. Presenter, Professor Bernard Eromosele Aiboka, JP. Date, Thursday, 12 December 2019. Venue, Shehu Musayardwa Center, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. prompt.
Years ago, a scout was looking around Bayelsa. Luckily for me, he came to my school. And that was how my journey of becoming the Nestle Milo Basketball Championship MVP began. Along the path, some people tried to discourage me because I was short. But then I got to realize that it's about your heart, not about your height. Sometimes I get discouraged going for training and all that. Sometimes I trek, and that is what every person that knows where he or she is going has to do, to play along with the challenges and make sure you overcome it. I am grateful for the platform Nestle is giving to young athletes like me. My name is Regina Donano, and this is my journey.
Nestle, good food, good life.
20 years of travel and counting. 20 years of promoting tourism in Africa and diaspora. Over 3 million kilometers traveled. Over 30 African countries visited. Explored the diaspora in 4 continents. Connected over 100,000 happy tourists to Africa. Reached over 15 million homes. Igniting smiles across Africa and beyond. As Kogi Africa turns 20, we thank you and invite you to join us in the quest for 20 must-visit destinations in partnerships with the largest TV network in Africa, the NTA, Ministry of Information and Culture, Ministry of Transportation, Studio 24, Delta Airline, Toll Brokers International. You too can still be a partner. Call the numbers on your screen or info@kogiafrica.tv. Kogi Africa, celebrating 2 decades of heritage, travel and tourism.
So fast. I'm tired. I want to check out of this country for greener pastures.
Calm down for a moment. Sit down. Do you have a job where you're going to?
No, but someone's arranging,
Listen, Lincoln. Getting out of this country without a proper plan means one thing. Unimaginable begin. You know, I've been in the diaspora, but legitimately, great things at home and abroad. As I was saying, without the proper footing abroad, risk is not worth it. Listen, Alinko, it's better to be home than be trapped abroad, or even end up in prison.
My name is Giato Adeza Adams, the General Manager, Corporate and Strategic Communications, Nigerian Port Authority. As regards the land borders closure, available statistical data from APMT, which is one of our terminal operators that is involved in container handling terminal, has recorded an increase of 200 TEUs of cargoes into their terminal as a result of cargo diversion from the vessels originally meant for neighboring countries. That shows you that the terminal operators is going to have an increase in revenue, is accrued to the terminal, and at the same time, Nigerian Port Authority will equally benefit from the revenue increase. So that is the benefit we derived, or we have derived, from the border closure.
You are welcome back, and in case you've just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are live. Well, one of our complimentary segments, that's the business news. Nigeria's tax laws to undergo review as experts advocate technological support for industrial revolution. For more on this and other stories on our business news segment, let's join Kunle Adeyeye.
The federal government is in the process of reviewing the country's tax laws with a view to meeting global best practices as well as block leakages. And key players in tax administration management in Nigeria are having their input in the tax laws proposed by the Nigerian Law Reform Commission.
The tax regime in Nigeria is so obsolete and inadequate to the extent that by World Bank report of 2012, our tax to GDP ratio as a country of 180 million people is just 2%.
Also, the Commission proposed increase in the punishment provided in subsections of the Act, for example, Section 64, subsection 7, from 10,000 naira to 50,000 naira, and 6 months imprisonment to 2 years.
In another development, Professor Abdulrasheed Na'ala has premised Nigeria's quest for industrial revolution on technological backings. He said technological innovations are essential in the drive to revolutionize the agricultural sector of the nation's economy.
You can never go wrong with technology. Technology does not just make things easy in terms of production, but also able to multiply so many levels. So we're hoping that technology in agriculture will lead to what we always need in this country, which is agri mechanization.
And next, details of Tuesday's tradings on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Business News. I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Many thanks, Kunle, for the business package on More Nigeria. Next for us is newspaper review.
Our regular newspaper reviewer, Bayo Toyobi, is in the studio this morning to give more depth into our review. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning, Rhoda. Good morning, Kensley.
Bayo,
good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Let's begin by taking a look at the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper, below the nameplate, court restrains Gandhi from creating Council of Chiefs. Details on page 4. Banira out as Ancon gets new chairman. That's on page 3. Bafarawa and Wako trade words at Sokoto Airport, page 13. This story says, borrowing inevitable, federal government tells lawmakers. No new request, that's according to the DMO, and tread with caution, according to experts. And then right at the foot of the front page there, Senate probes CBN over 20 trillion naira unremitted stamp duties. That's page 6. EU and Amnesty International say violence growing in Nigeria, and police parade 6 suspects over killing of women leader. That's the Kogi PDP women leader. Details on page 36. Rhoda.
All right, let's quickly read the blueprint. On the blueprint, just beside the nameplate, we have it there. Disco's increased revenue collection by 43 billion naira in 1 year. So that's a statement credited to the director. And border closure will ensure more transparency and integrity, and that's by the auto marketers. Also, below the nameplate,